Okay. Good morning. Yeah. Good morning and welcome. Would you believe it's July 7th? It's July 7th. Okay. So, what happened to July 4th? Good England weather here in Utah. So, good morning to all of you. Welcome to our third program in this 2019 Summer Forum Speaker Series here at the First Unitarian Church. In a moment, I'm going to introduce our speakers, but first, a couple reminders. One is no music today, no music. Second is let's keep that door shut because of the sound system, because this is being recorded, okay? If you need to exit, if you'll exit through the back door for some reason, okay? After our speaker's presentation, which will probably be on the short side, we'll have the offering, passing the plate, and then we'll go to questions and answers, okay? So with that in mind, our Summer Forum speakers are here today, Satin, Tashnizi, and Nora Abudan. And just brief introductions, okay? Satin's parents were born and raised in Iran, and after the 1979 revolution that changed the government in Iran, her parents fled and came to the United States. And Satin was born in California, migrated to Utah, to Logan, and to Salt Lake City, where she earned her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Utah, where she was active in student government, where she was also active with internships through the Hinckley Institute of Politics. I can see her sitting in the front row of my classes. She's fluent in Farsi, Persian, and has visited Iran in recent years, and now works for Goldman Sachs. Nora's parents were born and raised in Palestine, and graduated and moved to America, where here in Utah, Nora was born and raised. She graduate of schools in Salt Lake City and graduated from the University of Utah in 2015 with a degree in economics and a minor in Spanish. She's fluent in 3 languages, including Arabic. She's a winner of a United Nations award for her efforts to build bridges with diverse communities through education. Today, Nora works for Goldman Sachs, Consumer and Commercial Banking Division, helping people with financial consumer lending. Satin and Nora are co-founders of the Emerald Project, begun in 2017 to initiate community dialogues on the subject of Islamophobia. Their topic today, Islam and Islamophobia. Let's welcome our third Summer Forum Speaker Series, Satin, Tashnizi, Nora Abudan.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. We are humbled to be here. And I'm so sorry about the music. I saw all the awws, so we do apologize for that. But again, Satin and I are so excited to be here. And Satin is the executive director of Emerald Project, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about ourselves before we get started.
Thank you so much all for having us today. Before we begin, I really want to give my warm, genuine thank you to Dr. Chambliss.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, he was my mentor in college. He was my favorite professor in college, and I did sit in the front row of a seat. In fact, the very first day of college for me, like the very first class I ever took was National Government from Dr. Tim Chambliss. I remember going to that class like 18, nervous, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, and I remember being so inspired by him. Every email he ends is with keep smiling, never give up, and he always encouraged me and said, it doesn't matter if you fail or you fall down, what matters is how fast you get back up again. And he doesn't know, but there are so many random times, be it in a career or with a nonprofit or social situations where that does keep me going. So thank you so much for your mentorship. It's an honor to be here today. So thank you.
Let's give him a round of applause.
So like Nora and Dr. Chambliss said, my name is Satin Tashnizi. I am the executive director of the Emerald Project. We look like lobsters today because we just got back from Bear Lake, so I usually look a little less colored than this. But today we're really appreciative of your time and your space. I think it's no secret, or the elephant in the room is, in the last couple years, in the last election, the Muslim ban, the demonization of Muslims in the media, there's a lot. It's a really, really juicy, hot topic with opinions all over the spectrum. And a lot of missing context. But I can tell you from our perspective, what we're fighting for isn't money or even like like donations and stuff. What our organization is fighting for the Muslim community is space, representation, and conversation, and nuanced conversation. So for you to lend us this space in a church that isn't our faith is a really, really big deal. And I really want you all to recognize how kind it is of you to lend us your stage and your time. You guys are all incredibly busy, so thank you for having us. The Emerald Project's mission is to combat the misrepresentation of Islam. So after the Muslim ban and everything happened in 2016, it was myself, Nora, and another girl, her name was Faiza Javed. We were getting like a lot of random questions about Islam and Muslims. So it was her idea to put on a 3-part series called Is Islamophobia Real? With no intention of like having a nonprofit organization. We just wanted a space for where people could come and the community could come and ask questions. Nora, do you want to talk about how that event went down?
Yeah, so it was a 3-part series. The first one started in February of 2017, and we're like, yeah, whoever wants to come and have a conversation, whether it's Muslims who want to have that space to say, look, I'm not a terrorist. Look, this is my home too. I grew up in America, or I migrated to America. And whether it was a non-Muslim person who wanted to say, look, I don't view you as a terrorist, or I do view you as a terrorist, and let's talk about it. So that was a really interesting series because the first one we had about 80 or 90 people show up.
Which we were surprised about. There was a lot of people who came to that. Muslim and non-Muslims came.
Yeah, and we had it actually at the Marmalade Library, and they were kind enough to lend us their space. But from there on, we had the second part of the series about a month or two later, and then the third part of the series, which was great because we had one that was like a women's panel, and we had a diversity of Muslim women who came, Muslim women who were tattooed, Muslim women who were converts, Muslim women who didn't fit the one-size-fits-all in the media. So with Emerald Project, it's so great because we have people from, like Satin said, all over the spectrum coming and using their voice and saying, look, this is not me, this is not what's represented in the media, that's not who I am. My religion has literally been hijacked. So with that, we were so surprised that there was such an appetite and hunger for information or dialogue that we had different organizations start to reach out to us. We had the FBI reach out to us, and they wanted to do a private event.
Which was crazy because our families were both investigated with the FBI.
Yeah, so I was like, Satine, we're not in trouble, we're not being interrogated.
I was like, I was really, what's that word called when you're like paranoid? I was so paranoid. I was like, I'm like, you already, just pull up my file. What are you asking me here for? So when we went in, the night before, I studied the night before because I was like, I need to be ready. We went in and they were very, kind of, hesitant at first, and they were pretty closed off, but they were really kind people. And so it was one of those situations where we both weren't we didn't know, the FBI was kind of who are these people, and we were kind of who are these people. But they ended up opening up, and we had I think to date that was probably one of the most incredible conversations we've ever had. They asked us really in-depth questions. Well, is Sharia law dangerous? What is jihad? Are you mad that people in your religion are terrorists? And we'd say, no, are you mad that people because the woman was Christian, we said, are you mad people in your religion are part of the KKK? And she's like, oh, okay, that's a good point, So we had a really good, conversation, and it was really crazy. But anyway, and then we had the UTA reach out to us. We did a training for them, but we thought law enforcement's law enforcement, right? That was not true. They were kind of offended by our presentation in the beginning because they said, your questions and your icebreaker questions made it seem like you guys wanted us to give you answers that made us look racist or Islamophobic, but we deal with the refugee and migrant population more than any other part of the government does because we're in public transportation. So it was a bump. It wasn't bumpy, but we had to really adapt and transition with every population that we talked to.
So with that, we can go a couple of different ways with the way that we're going to set up today. You are more than welcome to ask us questions. I know a lot of you here are allies, but maybe you don't have the information or tools necessary if you do hear something, for example, on the tracks of somebody being like, why are you wearing that hijab? Why are you wearing that head covering? Maybe some of us want to help, but we don't have the necessary response to stand up for people. And also some of us may be in a space where we are hesitant and maybe we do think Muslims are dangerous, or maybe we have our own biases that we're unaware of, but we welcome both sides of that. Just because you have a different opinion than us doesn't mean we can't have a conversation. Just because we don't see eye to eye doesn't mean we can't coexist. And so we welcome every question, every perspective, because part of the problem is not talking about it and staying within our ignorance and not being able to work with one another as neighbors, as community members. So we lend this space to you as well. I'm sure you love hearing us talk all day, but we really want to engage with you and have a dialogue back and forth. So Satin, if you want to give them a couple of topic options.
Well, actually, so like Nora said, this is a two-way conversation. Like we know in our stories when we talked about the FBI and the UTA, it was a dialogue. So typically we open up with a little bit of a conversation, but we like to give maximum amount of opportunity for people to ask questions, not necessarily like of us personally, but about different topics. But before we do that, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about like what Emerald's mission and vision is really fast before we open up to that. So in the beginning I said Emerald's mission is to combat misrepresentation of Islam. The reason we picked that mission statement versus combating Islamophobia is because the misrepresentation of Islam has many, many, many consequences. One of them is Islamophobia. One of them is the social justice element of people being discriminated against or hearing, very vulgar things in the street. That's kind of one element. But from my perspective, misrepresentation of Islam also contributes to foreign policy that I don't think is right or is smart or is accurate. The demonization of Muslims has fueled a lot of the aggressive foreign policy in the Middle East that has led to Al-Qaeda, has led to ISIS, has led to the Taliban. And as we move forward in history or in the future, that is only going to have secondary consequences. And we're going to get so deep into it that we're going to lose track of where everything came from. So by combating misrepresentation of Islam, we can actually influence our own government to make smarter choices because now we have a population that is informed and educated. So we're not in the business of converting anybody to Islam, but we are in the business of fighting for what Islam is and is not. In the non-Muslim community, we talk about the difference between Islam and politics. For example, you guys may see Saudi Arabia on TV. They are a very religious country. It is very difficult for me to expect of you to not make your assumptions of Islam based on what you see on TV about Saudi Arabia. This is a Muslim Islamic Sharia country. Why is it that they don't let their women drive? Is that because of Islam or is it because of the government? That is a very sophisticated division to make in your minds, but it is one that is crucial to be made. So I can give you more examples of like the Islamic Republic of Iran. There's a lot Iran's government does that isn't cool, but are they doing it because they're Muslim, or are they doing it because they're just a government operating in the name of Islam, right? Islam and culture is another thing that we separate. Arranged forced marriages of young men and women is something that's common in some cultures in the Middle East. Is that because Islam told them to do that, or is that a cultural practice? How do we know? We have the luxury of going back to one source, which is the Quran, and the Sunnah, which is the hadith, like what the sayings, teachings, and doings of the Prophet Muhammad. So that's what we're in the business of separating, is Islam from politics and Islam from culture, so we can shed light on what Islam is and is not. So that being said, we kind of want to turn it, I think we need to take a break before questions, but we'll give you, she said no.
What we're going to do is pass the plate. We're going to have the offering, give our speakers a chance to relax, or shake hands, and then we'll go to questions and answers.
Can I give them a couple topics before we break? So Nora kind of touched on it, but nothing is off limits. You are not ever going to offend us, which I don't think you ever would. But nothing is off the table, and you can be as specific or as big picture as you like. Nora, and our organization is also really big on saying, I don't know when we don't know the answer. So keep in mind, like, you're not going to make us feel uncomfortable if you ask us like a really hard question, because we'll just be like, oh, we don't know. Yes.
Oh, okay, we're going to. Well, maybe that can come up in Q&A almost immediately, okay? Maybe we'll let you be the first question, okay? So, and standing over on this side, I'm looking for a hand. Who would be on that? You're acting like my students. I see a hand. That's going to be from Mary. In just a second, I'm going to give you the microphone, ask you to keep the microphone up about here so everybody can hear your question. I'll give you the microphone, then you give the microphone back to me. We'll alternate back and forth as well as we can. And so you'll be the first one over on this side, Jerry, okay? You'll probably be number 2. And I'll signal to you that you're number 3 in line or you're number 4 in the queue, okay? So you'll have an idea. I'll get that microphone to you before you ask your question, okay? Quick memory. Election night, November 2016. I'm downtown at a hotel, and we're watching the election returns, and standing next to me is Satin Tashnizi. It's late at night, getting towards 11:30 to midnight, and as the returns come in, and they're fairly unbelievable to many of us, given the projected poll numbers prior to the election night, I remember Satin quietly saying, "I am so afraid." I always remember that. So with that in mind, let you go up to the microphones, and I'm going to come over here and give this microphone to Mary, okay? You're going to have the first question for Satin and for Nora, okay?
This question may be too deep into the weeds, but it's on my mind, so I'd appreciate asking. And if you don't know the answer to it, please feel free to say that. But about the time of 9/11, I saw a piece on public television about Saudi Arabia giving free schools in the Wahhabi version of Islam. Very radical points of view, but the schools were free, and according to the PBS documentary, they were saying that a lot of parents didn't particularly like having their sons educated in that point of view, but it was the only school they could afford to send their sons to. At that time, I had the radical idea, instead of sending troops in, why don't we send teachers in and give free schools? But anyway, since then, I've wondered if a whole lot of the so-called terrorists with their extreme views of Islam have come from that Wahhabi education. Would you have any ideas?
Wait, hang on. Your name is Mary?
Yes.
Would you like to come up here as well? I love that question. That's very insightful. And Satine was like, please let me answer it. That's a beautiful question. Thank you so much, Mary.
Yes. We know plenty about Wahhabism. So thank you. That is a very, very educated question. Thank you so much. So well, I'm going to start here. The Wahhabism is not a sect of Islam. There is a lot of funding and support and advertising that it is, because unfortunately the most powerful regions of the Middle East that have the most money happen to identify, Saudi Arabia's government is Wahhabist, and because they have the most influence in some of the more financially wealthy country, they happen to they get the representation of Islam a lot, and they're Wahhabi, so people link the two immediately. I can tell you the story of where things went like this in history. Back in late 1200s, there was in Asham, like in Syria, in Damascus. Back then, like Syria wasn't like a country. They went based on like really massive cities. So in the Damascus region, there was a man, his name was Ibn Taymiyyah. And his father was like a very, very notable like Islamic scholar. And he had a lot of like rank and he was very respected. After his father passed, his son took over, who was also like, his name was also the same as his dad, Ibn Taymiyyah, so not to be confused with his father. But at the time, the Mongols were trying to come invade, and they were trying to protect their land. So he had been writing a lot of pretty radical writings and saying he was an Islamic scholar, and he was already very much in trouble with like the government at the time. They had taken him to court and said like, these interpretations that you're passing down and teaching are not like religion, like you can't do this. And he was taken to court like 3 times before he was actually thrown in prison, and he actually died in prison. But at the time, the Mongols were coming, and the Mongols were, as you know, like a Muslim empire. But they were coming to take this piece of land, and in Islam, it's not permissible. I mean, there are situations where it's permissible to kill, like self-defense, and there are specific rules of engagement at a time of war, but it's not okay to kill like unjustly, let alone kill another Muslim, let alone kill another Muslim during the holy month of Ramadan, which is when Muslims fast. But he issued a fatwa, which is kind of like if I can liken it to what the Pope used to issue, like a papal ordinance. So what is it? Yes, yeah, AP European history is like way long ago, but I remember that. So he issued a fatwa saying, no, it's okay to go out and kill these Mongols. We need to protect our land. And all these people were like, they're Muslims. Like, we can't just go kill them because they're coming to our land. And he said, no. They're not Muslims. They're idol worshippers. You have every right to kill them. And he invoked jihad to say, not only should you go kill them, you are allowed to kill them, you should go kill them, and you don't even have to fast. You need to go kill them. So this deviation from Islam started from this point. This is 1294 time period. This man dies in prison, and his writings survive. And then fast forward to like the late 1600s, there's a man in the Great Arabia region. His name is Abdul ibn Wahhab. He finds these writings and he like revamps them and writes even more. And he says, and he names it after himself, which is not really cute. He calls it Wahhabism. He takes these writings, and he had a lot of the extreme ideology that you hear about is part of his ideology that he created, but he said this is the one and true Islam, and he's Salafi. Salafi, actually, I'm not going to tell you the definition because I probably won't remember it exactly correctly. But he said, we need to make Islam pure again. We need to make everyone come back to the true Islam. So he goes around all over the Middle East, shops around, and says, everybody, you need to convert to my religion. Everybody in like Iraq and Syria and Lebanon were like, no, we're cool with what we have. So he packs up his stuff and goes back home to Greater Arabia, where he came from. But then he met a man named this like really, really wealthy leader of this tribe, and his name is Ibn Saud. And he says, listen, I want to unify all the tribes in this region, and if you want, I need your help. Come help me, I will arm you and give you weapons, but if you help me unify under the guise of your religion, I will make your religion the law of the land. And so together they go and they kill whoever doesn't convert to Wahhabism, because if you don't convert to this, they're like, well, we're Muslim, like, why are you going to kill us? They said, no, you're not the right Muslim. This is the right Muslim. What I say is right. So they kill anyone who doesn't convert. A lot of people converted to this Wahhabi extreme ideology under the guise of Islam, and then they unify this entire area and they call it Saudi Arabia. And that is how this nation is born. And if you open the books, the children's books in these elementary schools, not even like the Wahhabi schools, I'm talking like public school, it says we need to kill all Shias, we need to kill all Christians, we need to kill all Jews, because this is like I think their entryway to paradise or whatever. But in Islam, If you study Islamic history during the time of the empire, a Christian and a Jew and a Muslim were treated equally under the courts of Sharia. So there are so many core contradictions in Wahhabism that are not Islam. But it's unfortunate because that is what's portrayed on TV and that is what's portrayed to Muslims. So I don't think, to circle back to your question, Al-Qaeda that's their ideology. Taliban, ISIS, this is all that ideology that is not Muslim. And we're trying to rescue a generation that's falling for that, BS to be Islam, at the same time that we're talking to you guys about Islamophobia.
Yeah, so Mary, I agree with you. I think instead of sending troops there, we need to change the ideology, because what they're reading every day is Wahhabism. What they're reading every day is, kill the infidels, kill Muslims, their own brothers and sisters. It really is garbage that's being portrayed and that's being perpetuated, and it needs to stop through education and not through more killings and war. And that's just my 2 cents, but we do need education, and that's what Emerald Project is. We're not out here, like Satin said, to convert people. We're here to educate not only the non-Muslim community, but our own community, because they're the ones buying in. It's just like they want a sense of belonging. They, these terrorist organizations, they give them salaries to live. They promise them that their families will be taken care of, even if they blow themselves up. They promise them so many things, and a lot of them don't have a lot going on in their life that they feel like this is their only choice. But it's a huge problem in education.
It's an unfortunate cycle, and every time we invade, we almost play into their narrative. So if I had advice for the State Department, I would not say, do not say we have to go kill radical Islamists. I would say what you saw on TV was not Islam. Why legitimize them? This is what they need to survive. Delegitimizing them could actually solve the problem of terrorism. But that was a really good question.
Thank you.
I am confused. You can straighten me out. A few weeks ago, finished reading the memoirs of Hadrian. Hadrian was Roman Empire about 130 AD. I got the impression from reading Hadrian, he was in Antioch dealing with Middle East people. And I thought, he's dealing with them the same problems we're dealing with now, 1900 years later. And then the thought struck me, he's 500 years before Islam. Are we dealing with something that's basic and has been there for a long time, that Islam, it got the tag, a name for it, but it really was existing a long time before Islam, much like the West became what it was, but it tagged on a name Christian over the top of it, but that didn't really change it a whole lot. Is that going on still in the Middle East? And it preceded Islam, and I've read the Quran and a lot of other works, so I'm very confused about that.
I want to just ask a clarifying question. Are you asking if the problems in the Middle East are the same as today, or the problems in the world are the same as they were then?
I'm noting that the problems we're dealing with now were much the same as Hadrian was dealing with 1900 years ago, and that preceded Islam by 500 years. Have the people, are they basically that, and Islam is something that's over the top of it?
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and answer first. What I have to say on that subject is I do think history repeats itself, and oftentimes it's things that should never be repeated. If you look at Elizabeth and Ferdinand in Spain, they wanted to bring Catholicism back to Spain, and they kicked out all the Arab Moors, and they kicked out the Jewish population as well. If you look at the Christian Crusades, if you look at the Holocaust, if you look at so many things in history, we're not immune to it. The Muslim population in Islam, it gets twisted, and it gets twisted for political means, it gets twisted for cultural means. So to answer your question very plainly, it is a repeat in history, and it's a shame, but through education and through our own Muslim countries knowing, no, this is Islam, keep that in a box. Don't say what you're doing is in the name of Islam. Call it what it is. Say you want territory, say you want resources, say you want control over this region, but don't mix religion into it. But a lot of times, you're not going to get people to go for your agenda if you do not have something like the name of God behind you. And in the Middle East, more often than not, a lot of the countries are very religious, or they do believe in God, and so they use that as a tactic to manipulate. And if it's not politics, then it's the culture saying this is the way that it has been for the last 1,000 years. And so, yeah, just to answer your question, I do think it's the same thing that's being repeated throughout time, just with different people or different ethnicities or different religions. It's a tale as old as time.
I agree, and I think the one kernel to identify here is, why does it repeat? What doesn't change in human history? Your need to feed your family, your desire to expand your territory, your desire to be dominant amongst your neighbors. These things are the same in history. It doesn't matter when you live today, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. That is what it's always about. In fact, when I went to college, I studied the different strategies like states use to achieve these exact same things. We named them. We developed theories on how they work. We never said that they stop and they go again. They just transform, and we've become smarter. And now we have entire government agencies that plan around these things. So expecting that piece to stop is not wise, because it will always continue. But I think our goal should be to really find tools to call these things out, like Nora says, for what they are, because the real danger isn't even the expansion and shrinkage of territory and acquisition of natural resources. It's the damage you do in the meantime and to what you use to get there. Because unfortunately, well, actually not unfortunately, if I'm a leader in some country in some part of the world and I want to go get my neighbor, I'm not going to come out and say, I'm going to go get my neighbor because I want their stuff, because all the people are going to be like, why are you going to do that? Because if you do that, my brothers are all going to die fighting in this war to get all this stuff. That's a dumb idea. So I can't do that as the leader. I need something to make me legitimate. I need something to win your hearts and minds. I need you to buy in so that I actually have a shot at getting these natural resources that are next door to me. Sometimes that means scaring a population, like in China, like in North Korea, like in the United States. Sometimes that means bringing purpose into the mix. Let me give you a purpose to fight for me, like the United States military, like a church, like many different things, right? We're going to go do this, and we're going to go do this because we need to go do this for God, or we need to do this for our country, right? So these things, when blown out of proportion, now, no, you need to do this because your religion ordered you to do it. You need to do this because you'll get 72 virgins that's made up on the other side if you do it. Right? So these things are not immune in history. It happens over and over and over again. But what we can do is when it happens again, we call them out. This is us calling them out. This is us saying, ISIS, we know you just want to be your, Taliban, we know you just want to take over Afghanistan and have your own country, but don't say you're doing it in the name of Islam, because that's not true in the meantime.
Yes, I'd like to ask if either of you are familiar with an organization called Muslims for Progressive Values. I raise this question because one of the international leaders is someone that many of us know. Her name is Jamila Tharp. And not that many years back, she was a Unitarian intern in this congregation. She's both an ordained Unitarian minister and also an international leader in the group called Muslims for Progressive Values. She's traveled all around the Middle East, finding particularly feminist organizations and non-binary gender organizations in these Middle Eastern countries. Muslims for Progressive Values is the name of Jamila's group. if you're not familiar with it, look them up on, Google or Facebook or something. It's quite a remarkable group, and I'm inspired by what they do.
Thank you. No, I'm not familiar with them. Are you, Nora?
No, is that the same Jamila I'm thinking of? Okay. I don't know. Thank you so much.
Oh, I would like to know how to pronounce everything correctly. And I think we should all leave here enlightened about that. Now, 40 years ago, Mary and I were at the University of Utah.
Go
They
Utes.
had a Middle Eastern center headed by Dr. Atiyah. I believe he was from Egypt. And we did a lot of things with the, was it the Arab Students Union? Yes, which would probably not be permitted today. And I did have 5 or 6 girlfriends that married men from the Middle East that were all going to school at the U. 1 from Iraq, 2 from Iran, 1 from Morocco, and 1 from Lebanon. So Mary and I met quite a few people and were so upset when 9/11 happened because it didn't go along with what we had experienced in our lives. So I wish you would tell us a little bit about what is happening in your world today, right now, in the life that you're leading here in the United States. She has a student right now that is a graduate student at the University of Utah, working on a PhD, and she's from Tehran, Iran. So first of all, I want to know how to pronounce the name that you would prefer. I would like to know how to pronounce Islam.
Okay.
And also Muslim, or if there's something else you'd rather be called, and a few words like that. And it's the Koran. Want to know how to pronounce that correctly. So could you tell us a couple of things?
Yes. Yes, I think that's really important because vocabulary is a very basic necessity to be able to build on top of other concepts and be able to articulate an idea. So let's go ahead and go over them. So a Christian belongs to Christianity. A Jewish person or a Jew belongs to Judaism. A Muslim person belongs to Islam. So sometimes people mix it up. They'll say, like, I met an Islamic person. So the correct way would be, I met a Muslim person today. So Muslim, like, I can't liken it to anything else. It's just Muslim. And a Muslim belongs to Islam. Islam literally means submission to God. A Muslim is one who submits to God. So just think about it that way. Christian to Christianity, a Muslim to Islam. Another thing, too, is the Quran. So the way we spell it is with a Q, actually, Quran. So if you're speaking about the holy book, the proper way to say it is the Quran.
We say Quran with a GH sound, Quran. But you
Quran,
can say
yeah. But if you can't say it, it's okay. If you say Quran, we're gonna understand what you mean. It just means a lot that you're even asking in the first place, because a lot of times people are like, I think this is how you say it. Why not? Let's go along with it. So, Quran, I think it makes the same sound as like quack, Quran. So you can say it that way. And then another word is Sharia law, jihad, hijab. Hijab is the head covering that a woman wears. Hijab is not just limited to a piece of cloth that she puts on her head, but that's usually that specific part that they're calling out is hijab. Are there any other words that I didn't cover that are usually said in the media or in conversation or in community? Yes.
Is it Iran?
Ooh.
Iran.
It's Iran. You can say
Like
Iran.
with an E, yeah.
Iraq is actually Iraq, but you can say Iraq.
Yeah.
Iran is a gift from George Bush to us. So I would just My mom, and it's not Saddam Hussein, it's Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
Question. I've been around long enough to have heard these kinds of conversations, it seems, forever. And it started with race relations back in the early 60s. It started at the end of World War II. Yeah, I wasn't old enough then to really understand the conversations. The United Nations has been formed since then. And we just seem to have these conversations over and over again. And now it appears it's been at least 1,900 years that we've been having these conversations. And they always seem to be led by young people, full of energy, newly out of college, with a perspective that they think is unique in their own. And this is, I don't question your motives, because I really feel good about what you're trying to do. But I keep having to ask, what makes you different than all those people that tried to do this for 1,900 years? What should give me hope that your solution is any different? That people, you know, we all have our own philosophies. We could have 4 different groups up there, each having different philosophies about the same issue, and they all are going to swear they're right. And they're all going to try and change your mind to their perspective. How are we going to solve that problem?
Thank you. That is a wonderful question. I imagine you were one of those young people who probably was doing that. So thank you for the work that you did, even though I don't know what you did. That's a really good question, because I agree with you. And in fact, I feel sometimes critical, because I feel like the way that you asked your question is we're having these conversations over and over and over again, which implies 2 things. 1, nothing got resolved. And second, we're not learning from our mistakes. So that does happen sometimes, but I disagree with the premise of your question, because
Is there a third thing? Possibly we don't understand the problem itself?
yep, that's actually, yes, that is true. We don't understand their problem, or we're solving the wrong problem. I think, for example, I'll give you a general example. I think that there is a really, really, really big trend and push to be like other people in America, the melting pot concept of like, we're all the same. Islam and Christianity and the LDS religion, Judaism, they're so alike, they're all the same. That's not true. That is not true. We have very core differences among our religions. We have core differences among our identities. We have core differences among our cultural practices. It is what is different, I think, about what we're doing is we are not trying to make anybody be something that they're not, and we're not trying to be the same as anybody. We are different, but America is incredible because I can be different here. We can disagree, we can vote differently, and we can still not only coexist, but we can be friends. This is a very sophisticated concept for humankind, if you look at world history, right? I think organizationally, we're not trying to be that organization that breaks the cycle. I think we're doing something very specific, and we're very disciplined about it. We're not trying to be something outside of our mission. We're very disciplined to our mission. All we're saying is we're trying to combat misrepresentation of Islam. We're not trying to come out and say all Muslims are amazing people, because we've met some that aren't. We're not trying to say that Islam is the same as Christianity, because it is not. We are trying to separate concepts, because concepts should be separated. You do this on a daily basis with domestic issues all of the time. Just because Obamacare was passed by maybe somebody that you liked doesn't mean Obamacare is perfect. Just because you might have one stance on gun control doesn't mean that you agree with someone who's really like pro-gun control or anti-gun control. There is a spectrum in which you fall. And sometimes you get frustrated because the media represents you incorrectly. You say, okay, but I stand here on this issue, but I don't stand here on this issue. Why are you making me feel like I stand on all of these issues? We are introducing nuance to a nuanceless conversation. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to be something that we're not. And we are different, but the organization that comes after us when we're sitting where you're sitting and some hopefully cute Middle Eastern people come up here.
And they're called the Ruby Project.
And they're called the Ruby Project comes up here. We want to say, wow, look what they're doing. They are a step ahead of us. What a sophisticated conversation. They are talking about something we couldn't even talk about back then, which is we're talking about topics today that you think could be talked about post 9/11. When I was in high school, I'm going to end on this note. When I was in high school, I did public forum debate. I don't know who knows what that is, but I was on the debate team, and every month we had a new resolution that we had to argue for affirmative and for negative on that issue and be prepared to argue both sides. One month, I'll never forget, the resolution was resolved. Is it appropriate for a mosque to be built right by the 9/11 memorial? That was a question. Back then, I remember thinking, I don't know, that's such a great question, should it? But today, I'm like, absolutely. These Muslims are not responsible for what happened 9/11. If I was me today back then, I would go to the board and I would say, this question is BS, take it out, because this is wrong. This is creating something that is incorrect. So yes, we are different because we're talking about deeper subjects, and I think it will go deeper and deeper as time continues.
Yeah, but to the core of your question, I'll just leave it there. She got an applause. Next question, please.
I'm a retired teacher, so I have a little different question.
Thank you for your service.
I know that there are celebrations in connection with Islam that are perhaps not understood or known about by people here. And I was wondering if there is some way that people are reaching out in schools where Islamic children are going to make it comfortable, because there may be days when they would not be going to school, or times when their diet is changed because of religious reasons, and if there's any outreach that's being done on that sort of thing. Because I know of kids, not with Islam, but with other cultures like Hebrew and even Catholic, where there are certain holidays that may be looked at and the children aren't given the opportunity to know about it.
Okay, that's an excellent question. So I can speak from personal experience. When I was growing up in public school and even higher education at the U, I didn't feel like I was accommodated or even acknowledged in that regard. So growing up, we have only 2 holidays within the Muslim religion. One is Eid al-Fitr, which is 3 days. It's the small Eid, E-I-D, and it's right after the holy month of Ramadan. And the thing with Muslims are, if you've never met one or talked about Ramadan with them, it is about 2 weeks earlier every year. So we don't know exactly when it's going to be. So when I started fasting when I was 6 years old, it was like around December that we fasted for the whole month of Ramadan. So I would go to school and then I'd come back and it'd be like 5 p.m. I'm like, cool, the sun went down, it's time to eat. So it wasn't very long, and I don't feel like I needed more accommodation in school because I could handle it even as a young child. But then as I got older and then Ramadan kept being pushed more and more into the summer, now we just fasted for all of May, right? And I don't know if you've ever fasted, but the way we do it is from from dawn until dusk. And so those are really, really long hour days, especially during the summertime. And with Muslims, when you fast, you absolutely can have no water, you can't chew gum, you can't have candy, nothing. Like, you are abstaining from all sustenance of food and water and liquids in your body. And in the school districts, I always felt like I just kind of had to put up with it, and it was very, very hard. But now I do see a change, because even is it in your sister's school, they gave them a paper and they talked about Eid. So they are doing it in some of the school districts. I believe Salt Lake School District sent out a paper to their staff, and they had a little bit of a briefing meeting where they said, Look, just be aware that you might have some Muslim students in your classroom. They're going to be fasting from this time to this time. Just be aware of that. You know, if they're a little bit more tired or they're not performing the same way, or maybe give them the option to stay indoor from recess because it's really hot outside. Be more accommodating to that. You know, I'm just speaking for myself with Ramadan and our celebration, since we only have 2. It doesn't have to necessarily be a federal holiday like Christmas is. That'd be great, but you know, we live in America, and it's fine because there are so many different religions and cultural practices. But with Christmas, it's never a question. You know, everybody gets Christmas off. But with Eid, you know, we never had it off, or I'd try to go pray and I didn't have that option. Even now as an adult, the specific part of the finance firm that I'm in, they said, hey, like, we know you're fasting, we'll try to make accommodations. And even this month, even the month that I fasted, they said, we'll be better about it next year because I'm working the same hours as all my other colleagues and counterparts, but I'm still expected to hit this mark even though I'm so much lower in energy and everything else. But to go back to what you were saying, yes, I do think there are changes. There are more accommodation in school districts and even past that in working lives. We just have to keep having representation, and they are doing a lot better job. And I have seen those different, not papers passed, but there is more education, and teachers are doing a lot better job, and administrators.
We're also looking to take a little bit more of like we were a little bit proactive because we're so brand new, but we're going to be more proactive about kind of pressuring, not pressuring, but asking politely of our government, which has been so kind to us here, to kind of, because sometimes they just don't know. It's not even that they're like, we're not going to let these Muslims do anything. It's like, oh, you guys have a holiday? Okay, great. Let's do something about it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's also lack of education as well. Like, I know at the University of Utah, there are things put in place where I could have gotten an extension on an exam or some work to turn in. But even me being born in the U.S. and speaking English, and my dad had gone to college back in the 70s, like, he still didn't know. He's like, no, you still have to show up and you still have to take your exams. But I just found out after I graduated, there are actually things put in place where you don't have to take the exam if you're fasting, and you don't have to show up if it's the time of celebration, you know, 1 or 2 holidays. So I think it's also sometimes people just don't know.
It seems as if fundamentalist movements, whether they be Christian or in Islam or any, the more severe they are, the more they adopt rigid codes of behavior, of dress, and things like that. For example, you guys are dressed very appropriately for this venue and this time, but in some Muslim countries you would be in serious trouble for dressing the way you are. Wondering if there's any kind of ecumenical movement among Muslims that will say, we'll boil this down, and this is essential Islam. This is the minimal requirement, and the rest is cultural overlay. So things like when the French ban wearing burqas, it won't be considered an attack on Islam, but simply a security measure that's addressing something that's just a cultural, societal affectation in the first place.
I'll go first. That's a good question. First, the way that we are dressed, we are not abiding by what Islam says. So we are actually in sin right now. We should not be dressed this way. That's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing, there are elements that are cultural and they are not Islamic, but they are still the choice of whoever decides to do it, just like I can wear whatever I want in America. If a woman wants to wear a burqa, it is not, the burqa, just so you know, is this. Like, the only thing showing is, no, that's not true. Sorry, niqab is the thing that's like this.
Yeah, so niqab is where you see the piece of cloth that goes from this side to this side. That is the niqab, and a lot of people in Saudi Arabia wear it, and it is cultural and political. It is not religious. And then the burqa is basically from head to toe. Like, their hair is covered, only their eyes are showing, and there's also a long black dress that is full burqa.
Yeah, so covering the face is optional. It is not obligatory. What's obligatory in Islam is to cover your hair, so your face is showing. Your neck should also be covered to your ankles and to about your wrists. These are the things that this is the way that it should be in Islam. Now that's what's obligatory. everything else is cultural, but the women are like welcome to choose. Now, in France, the fact that they banned it, I don't think is appropriate. France has absolutely no right. And the security clearance thing, that's made up. They have a lot of people that are very upset and that are Islamophobic. And I think that the security measures piece is just an excuse to be prejudiced against Muslims. Granted, what you said about you hit the nail on the head about separating what is cultural and what is Islam. So if there's a Muslim girl, my wish for her is to know what she should be. It is her obligation. Any Muslim is obligated to know what is expected of them in the religion. I want her to know what is cultural and what is Islam, and then I want her to be free to choose, just like Nora and I chose today. But when we cover because Islam asks us to, not because Iran's government asked us to, not because our man asked us to, but because it's a religious obligation.
If I want to, well, I don't really want to. I'm going to hide. I guess succinctly, the question is, in Western countries such as the United States or England, where English American common law basically is Roman Catholic law, since all we had were ecclesiastical courts until Henry VIII. And what should take precedence if they conflict? And perhaps an example might be honor killings. For example, in Holland, you might be aware Pim Fortuyn became prime minister, and seriously, Ali was one of her close supporters who were swept to power on the question of should honor killings be permitted on Dutch soil. Is that the liberal thing to do because we're permitting them to practice their religion? Or is it not really a liberal thing because we're horrified by honor killings? And if it turns out honor killings, in your opinion, are cultural rather than Islamic, perhaps you could take another example like stoning adulterers.
All right, thank you for the question. I'll go ahead and answer this one first. Honor killings are 100% cultural and BS, and it is 100% prohibited in Islam. I know that my grandfather on my mother's side actually did an honor killing to his sister. So what happened was they were living in Jordan, and this guy wanted to talk to his sister, and he'd keep throwing notes to her, and he'd keep trying to talk to her, and he wanted to marry her, and she wanted nothing to do with him. So he decided, okay, you're gonna play that way. So he spread a rumor saying that she was sleeping with someone in the town. And my grandpa and some of his, I don't know if it was some of his relatives, but him and some of his friends got together and were like, we need to restore honor back to the family name and take care of this. So they killed her. And after they did like an autopsy of her body, or they examined the body, turned out she was virgin. And even if she wasn't virgin, they had no right to do what they did to her. And even if they did that to her, why was the man excused? Because obviously if she did something like that, there was a second party that she was involved with. So it is absolutely garbage what is practiced. It should be outlawed, and I think you said Dutch law. They shouldn't allow them to do that because it is not Islamic. It is not a part of the religion. What it really boils down to, I can speak more to Jordan, but in Jordan, family name is so huge, and especially if you come from a more impoverished city or family name. Like in Jordan, our family is not wealthy. We live more in like the ghetto, and if you already have so much less than everybody else, and on top of that, there's rumors that your daughter or that your wife or that your sister has been doing things like that, they're like, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to get jobs. Now the family name is trash. We won't be able to get an education. We won't be able to marry her off. We can't marry off our other sisters. So it becomes this whole issue, and they think, oh, we'll take the power into our hands, and it is permissible because in Islam, this is what we believe, is that a man and a woman should be a virgin before they get married, but it's on both parties. It's not just the woman should be the man as well. But for whatever reason, it's turned into, we kill the woman. And I remember one time I asked my mom, I said, why is my brother always allowed to go out and have girlfriends or go to prom and I was never allowed to? And then she told me, because you can get pregnant and he can't. So it's a bigger issue. It's patriarchy, it's misogyny. They really just they would rather dispose of the person than deal with the repercussions of the shame that it brings to their family. So honor killings, again, are garbage and 100% prohibited in Islam, but culturally, especially in Jordan, they're wildfire. You see them happening left and right, and that needs to stop.
Nora actually wrote a piece on this that we're going to publish once our blog is up, but that's a big piece of why we need to separate Islam and culture. There's people's lives on the line. But I'm going to answer your second question, because you asked about stonings and stuff. So Sharia law is nothing to be scared of, just like you said. Like in England, the law of the land is based on kind of Catholic laws and stuff. And in the U.S., yeah, you're right. Right. So Sharia law is just in the Quran. The Quran has a lot of stories in it, and it also has the rules of how we should live our life. It says where we should wear hijab. It says where to fast during Ramadan. It has everything that you need to know is in the Quran, where we have to get our information. But that there's also law is in there. So Sharia law is very sophisticated, and it needs to be enforced as a system. I'll give you a brief example. When I first heard that inheritance, as a man gets 2/3 of the inheritance, but a woman gets 1/3 of the inheritance, I was pissed. I was like, this is unfair. What is all this? I don't want to do this, right? But what I didn't know is under Sharia, it is the man's obligation to provide for his family. If I'm married to a man, he has to provide for me, my children, and his parents. If I choose to work, which I have every right to do, I get to keep every single penny of what I make. So that way, when there comes down to inheritance, that man has to take the 2/3 he got from his parents to spend on his children and on his wife, but I get to keep my 1/3 for just myself. But again, this needs to be enforced as a system, because if it's not that the man provides for me under that law, then the inheritance comes out unfair, right? So that being said, in order for Sharia to be enforced, it has to be a Muslim country, which in no part of the world right now is Sharia law legitimately practiced. It's nowhere to be found. So it needs to be enforced as a whole. It needs to be a Muslim majority country, so you can't bring Sharia law to the United States, even though it's not even that scary. But even within that, I'm not going to answer the particular stoning question because I actually don't know, but I can tell you that it's way more complex than the piece that we receive. So I apologize, I don't have a better answer for that specific question, but I can tell you that more context would help a lot.
What I do know about the stoning or the lashes, I do know that there is circumstances, if they are proven that they had premarital intercourse, that they can be punished. But like Satin said, there has to be witnesses to what they did. They had to be in the room witnessing what happened.
See what happened. You can't.
So what that, I know that sounds strange, but it's basically putting it more as it's between them and God, because what instance would you be in where you would have, it's either 3 or 4 witnesses, and we would have to check back and send you an email or a message, but I believe it's about 3 to 4 witnesses would have to see what happened. So it's not just one person saying oh yeah, I was there, I saw exactly what happened, so go ahead and punish them. It'd have to be not 2 people, it'd have to be 3 or 4. So that basically says, don't accuse somebody of something unless you know for a fact that you saw it and it happened. So
you can actually get in trouble if you accuse someone and it wasn't true. You'll get in trouble for it. That was really cool that I learned that.
Right. So yeah. So the part about everybody carrying out these punishments just because they heard about it or just because one person saw it, that is inaccurate, and that's not part of Sharia law, and that's not a part of Islam either. Because, like she said, it has to be enforced as a whole. You can't just pick and choose what you want to do, even though people do that.
And the court has, someone in the court has us to do it, you can't like just go do it yourself. It's
Yeah, you
vigilance.
can't take matters into your own hands, even though unfortunately people do.
Hi, thank you for doing that. This is very helpful. I have two questions. So the first one is, out of curiosity, why do you call it the Emerald Project? And the second question is perhaps more of a wrap-up question, but what's your vision for this organization moving forward? Do you have specific goals for the next year and beyond? Thank you.
Do you want to do vision and I'll do why we called it Emerald Project?
Yes, what should I do first? Should I start first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, those are beautiful questions. Vision for moving forward. The first thing I wanted to tell you, shameless plug here, the Utah Museum of Fine Arts has agreed to partner with us in doing a museum exhibition through their Acme lab. I know that's exactly how we felt when we heard. We're like, us? What? They are such an incredible team. I could take another hour talking about how amazing UMFA is, but it's going to be for 6 months, from August 15th through December 15th. So please, if you want to like our Facebook page, we'll have Emerald Project on Facebook. We'll have all of our events and stuff up, but we'll have like our opening night in August. Is it August 15th, the opening night? I believe it's August 15th is the opening like artist talk, so we'll be there. And you guys can go check out the museum. We've been working on that for like a while now. Vision-wise, so one of our values at Emerald Project is to find we try to be cutting edge, which is hard when Nora and I aren't like talented outside of like the two things we're good at. So we have a team of like young ambassadors to come help us. We have like 6 young ambassadors between the ages of 16 and 21 on our team. But we try to find the best way to achieve our mission, which is combating misrepresentation of Islam. Sometimes that's conversations. Now we're trying to venture out into the museum realm. But we are trying to find ways to diversify and really combat misrepresentation. The second part of our vision is to really transition into going out into the Muslim community. Ironically, talking with non-Muslims has been the easiest thing for us to do so far. Because for a couple reasons. One, I mean, so far, everybody's been so open and kind. Second, sometimes we're the first wave of information that they are receiving, which we're very conscious of. So with the non-Muslim community, you're talking to people to change culture and shift power dynamics to bring back to Islam. And we're 2 young Muslim women who aren't covered, telling them what Islam is and isn't. It doesn't fly all the time. But we found a lot of allies within our own Muslim community, so that's part of our vision. And then the third piece of our vision, I think, is to expand who we talk to and how many people we talk to. We don't want to just talk to we do like talking to institutions, universities, law enforcement, academia, journalists, which is something we want to go into, government. We're looking to do an event with the state legislature. Also on July 9th, is that tomorrow?
No, that's in 2 days.
That's in 2 days. Tuesday, today is Sunday. Tuesday at Salt Lake Community College in South City campus, we're having our first ever mayoral forum. So 6 Salt Lake City mayoral candidates will be coming to speak, and we'll be moderating, asking them questions on topics pertaining to Islam and Muslims. So we're pretty psyched and nervous about that.
Yeah, but you guys are more than welcome to come. We have it posted on our Facebook page, and you can just get the tickets through Eventbrite. It is free, but it's just to reserve a spot.
Yeah, so expanding to talk to more people and more institutions is also part of our vision, as well as growing and developing our team. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, to cover the part about how Emerald Project got its name, it actually started out, like we said, as a 3-part series, and it was after the 3rd co-founder. We called it Faiza's Initiative. But it was really hard for people to pronounce it, for people to search for it. They're like, how do you spell that? And so we just rebranded, and we wanted to pick a name that would not necessarily be tied to anything of a religious name or something that would be hard to pronounce, but something that kind of encompasses who we are as an organization. So the emerald is a precious gem, and it is something that you have to dig through the earth and you have to uncover. And while sometimes it seems like it is, hard to find and it's hidden beneath all this dirt, once you pull it out of the ground, it is something beautiful and it's something to behold, and it's something that is given from nature and from Mother Earth. And also, we think that the emerald is a very feminine gem. It's a very feminine shape as well. Like if you look at our business cards, the way that the logo is, it encapsulates that this organization was birthed by 3 diverse women, and a lot of times we're not the ones who have a voice, and so we wanted to bring that femininity into it. And green is also the color of Islam. Green is also the color of mental health, which we think is very important in our Muslim population, and some things that we have to undo within our own biases and PTSD and things that we've grown up with. And also green is said to be the color or the favorite color of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him. So that's how we got our name, Emerald Project.
I was wondering if polygamy was practiced in Islam and if it's like an acceptable thing.
Wow, you really want to come out here and pop us with that question.
Yes,
okay.
I love that
Probably
question.
would have been better before the last.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes, polygamy is permissible in Islam. You can have up to 4 wives. My uncle, also I guess it's just my mom's side that just kind of dabbles in this, but my grandpa also had 2 wives. He had a wife in Jordan, which is my biological grandmother, and he was doing business in Kuwait, and eventually the neighbor came up to my grandma and he's like, Mabruk al arus, which means congratulations to the bride. And she said, like, we've been married forever. We have like 6 kids. Like, what do you mean congratulations to the bride? And so he's like, oh, you didn't hear? Your husband has another wife. And she was like, oh, really? So she goes up to my grandpa and she says, is this true? And he says, yeah, cat's out of the bag. So I'm going to bring her from Kuwait. I'm tired of paying for 2 houses. So he brings her from Kuwait to Jordan, and they live in the same house with just a curtain dividing them, like the part of the house. My grandma was livid, but yeah, and then also my uncle married a second wife, but he ended up divorcing her and going back to her first wife. It was a lot of drama. But with that, I just wanted to bring up that example because what my grandpa and what my uncle did were not it was not permissible and it was not practiced accurately, because in Islam, if you bring on more than 1 wife, you have to have the consent of the first, second, third wife, wherever you're at in the numbers. And so it was wrong of my grandfather to not inform my grandmother that he wanted to marry someone else. It was wrong of him to not listen to her response. So, for example, if she said, no, I don't want you marrying another woman, she has every right to leave the marriage at that point, because it's her choice just as much as it is his choice. Also, if she does happen to agree, if the second wife comes, it has to be so equal that in the Quran it says, if you give one a needle, you give the other one a needle.
It's really discouraged to have multiple wives in Islam.
Yeah, it's not preferred, but it is permissible. So literally, if he was to give a gift, even if it's like a sewing set to my grandmother, he needs to go give a sewing set or something of equal value to the other wife. And that's also why a lot of times people don't have multiple wives, because it is very difficult to maintain the same lifestyle between each wife. If you spend 2 nights with one wife, you have to spend 2 nights with the other wife. So
it's very uncommon. I don't think I know. I mean, Nora knows her, but I don't know anybody.
Yeah, well, you can't do it in the U.S. anyways. But
well, I mean, even the Middle East, I don't think I know anybody who's. It's not very common culturally.
In Jordan, I would say it's a little bit more common. But
well, in your neighborhood,
yes, in my neighborhood,
we need to take a trip to Zaqqa, Jordan, and we need to have a couple conversations because that place is out of control.
Yes, but but I don't want to lie to you and say, no, it's not a thing. It is happening, and there are people who have multiple wives. And like Satin said, it's not like encouraged, like, yeah, go have as many wives as you want. Like even the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he had multiple wives, but it wasn't just because he's like, yeah, I'm getting sick of Khadija, my first wife. Let me just go and see what else is out there. It was for very specific reasons. For example, if he went to a region and there was war and there was conflict, sometimes it would be like, okay, let me marry one of your daughters so our tribes can unite, so our tribes can have a good relationship with one another. A lot of the women that he married too were widows, so nobody else wanted them at the time, especially when the Prophet was around. Widows were very looked down upon. If you've already had a husband or you've already had children, nobody wanted you, and a lot of times you would end up having no food or water or shelter because you would have to make a means for yourself.
Islam brought a lot of rights to widows that they had none access to, none before. So that was a protection of their name as well, is why he would marry them. But when he was married to Khadija, from the time he was, which is his first wife, from the time they were married to her passing, he was only with her. So it was after her passing that he had the multiple wives.
Right, and something else too, while we're on that topic, his first wife was actually like if you want, a businesswoman or a CEO of Arabia. She was actually a merchant and a merchant seller, and she had her own business. And the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, was 15 years her junior. And she was like, I like my worker, and she actually proposed to him.
And she was a widow too, and 15 years older than him.
And she proposed to him. So just to circle back, it's not what you may think, like, oh, polygamists, yeah, they just want as many women as they want. Some men are like that, and some men do take advantage of that for that reason, but religiously and in Islam, it is for much, much more purposeful reasons, and you have to keep those in mind.
And the other thing, I just want to add one more thing to that. In Islam, intention is a lot. Like, for example, if with drinking, if we're going to like a bar or something, if I intend to drink, I get a sin for intention. If I take action on that and take a drink of alcohol when it's not permissible, that's a sin on action. But if I didn't intend to drink, but I get there and then I see the alcohol and I drink it, it's only a sin on action. So big picture, I know this is like kind of like, ooh, caveat, but like with the wives thing that she was saying, like intention is a really big deal. So even though we may not see some of these things, and it is none of our business from Muslim to Muslim, you can't just, you have to intend and be like, if you're going to marry another woman to have like a good time, like it's very different than if you marry another woman out of intention to unite a tribe or to benefit her or protect her from becoming a widow or whatever.
Okay, we're coming up on 11:30. Our last question.
Thanks. I'm curious, we've had a really broad overview of geopolitics and thousands of years of history, but what was it like for you two growing up as children of immigrants? And when you think of Muslim people, you're thinking of your aunts and uncles, and then you turn on the TV and it's Kalashnikovs and suicide bombers. How was that for you in forming your identity?
So my identity is very complicated because I'm the daughter of Iranian immigrants who, when they left Iran, they left Islam behind too, because their experience as being Muslims in Iran was so traumatizing because of what they experienced in their country. So when these things would come on TV, sometimes they would be in agreement, and so I had this but we were it was really, really weird. So I actually converted to Islam in January of 2018, so I'm brand new. My mom is she said, we came to America to fight for you to not have to deal with religion and politics, and you studied politics and converted to Islam. I don't know what to do here. So she's on her own journey, and she's starting to come around, but we need to be patient with people like my mother, and this is the case for a lot of Iranians, because their story is very unique, where I actually hid my fasting from my mom when I practiced Ramadan because I didn't want her to freak out. So my identity and my experience as being an immigrant is complicated for that reason. Second, being an Iranian and American, two countries that are at each other's throats, has been very hard. Questions like, if we went to war with Iran, which almost happened many times, whose side would you be on? So these kind of questions, and it's hard because when I went to study international relations, and that's where my passion lies, how do you study world, American interests and Iranian interests, opinionless and kind of standing back? That's a unique skill too, because you can't, in class, I feel like in Professor, gosh, what's Dr. Chambliss? What is his name? The international. No, Dr. He has studied in Israel a lot. He was so good. Steve Lobel. So I took two classes from this man. This guy was an incredible professor, but he'd be talking about different world international theories, and us in the class, I felt people kind of cheering on as they would kind of learn about international relations. But I wasn't cheering on either way, because it was always if U.S. is winning, Iran is losing. If Iran is winning, U.S. is losing. And on top of that, understanding the hierarchy between Iran's government separated from its people. So that also contributes to the conflict. Where did that lady go? Oh, there you are. Like the identity piece, but I think, and like the transition of like being able to separate Islam from politics and culture from Islam, because I feel like I was an Islamophobe for a long time, like moving forward through time and like shifting everything that you know over everything, like over and over again has been my experience. But I mean, it's beautiful. I love this country more than anything, and I love being Iranian more than anything, and now I love being Muslim, and I'm really grateful to live in such an incredible country. I really feel like I'm a patriot, and my love for what is and can always be America is very, 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 very deep, and I really cherish that because I do think it's a gift from the U.S. and a gift from God. So that's where I'll end.
Let's express our appreciation.
Are we on time?
What we're going to do is, in just a moment, we're going to go next door here, and it's an opportunity for you to speak one-on-one or to small groups of folks who want additional information. But also a quick reminder that I want to get this exactly in her words. Our next speaker next week, July 14th, is Dr. Cami Collette. Many of you know Cami because she's a member of this congregation. She's going to speak on the subject of health care. The specific topic is preparing for your care, starting the conversation about being mortal. That doesn't affect anybody in this room, I'm sure. Okay? So that's next Sunday, July 14th. Happens to be Bastille Day if you're interested in France. By the way, the U.S. won the soccer game 2-0 against Holland. So, once again, let's express our appreciation to our speakers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really want to give a warm thank you so much for sharing your space and listening with open ears and asking us such amazing, beautiful questions. We're excited to get to know one of you. We have Emerald Project stickers over here if anybody wants any.
Yes, shameless plug. Facebook, we're the Emerald Project. On Instagram, at Emerald Project SLC. And
you can also reach us by email if you have any questions or you want an event or a dialogue of any kind. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Yeah, and our email is info@emeraldproject.org. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Can we get a picture with you?